Hey guys, what's going on? It's me, Telrain. It's been a while since I made one of these kind of videos for SWG, but I want to talk about a controversial topic. I'll cut straight to the chase. I want to start by saying that SWG Restoration has become one of the biggest Star Wars Galaxy servers that's available right now. Honestly, it's kind of dethroned Legends as like the main server. There's obviously going to be Legends people that will disagree with that, but the numbers don't lie. Resto is kind of becoming the main Star Wars Galaxy server, with Beyond starting to shut down and other pre-CU servers starting to fall back a bit, and CU Emu not really having the launch they really expected for their beta. Resto has kind of taken the forefront when it comes to Star Wars Galaxy's activity, and because of that, I want to make sure that I can bring these sort of issues to light when they arise. I might get in trouble for talking about this video, but I really do think that this issue needs to be addressed. Um, and I understand that there will be a perception of bias, and that my feelings on this are, how do I put it, selfishly driven. But I want to present this issue in a clear, clean, and mature, consistent way instead of just instigating Discord wars by stirring up drama and typing essays in the PvP server and the PvP channel of the Discord. So, and I want to invite both staff and players to speak with me on this issue. Please, I would appreciate it if you guys would reach out to me on Discord. I'll leave my Discord in the description or in the comment section of this video. If you want to confront me on this issue, I would really appreciate it. I think that this is just a much better way to communicate these issues than, like I said, starting up a wall of text in the PvP channel that's just going to end up causing drama and solving nothing. So, that being said, what is the issue? Well, this is not an issue that has been unheard of in the past, but it's an issue that we're dealing with right now, and I think it's one of the worst cases of this that I've ever seen on my, across my 4 years on this server, and that being staff bias in GCW. Now, I know how that sounds. I know that there are going to be a lot of people that as soon as they hear this, say, "Oh my gosh, Telrain, here we go." But I do want to bring up some past examples of this issue and how they correlate to current examples of this issue. So the two examples that I can think of in the past are, at one point, one of the lead devs, Aconite, was in a guild known as Death, which is a controversial guild. But he was in this guild and he played with them every night. And then also the current lead dev, Orange, hanging out with the members of a guild called Nexus, which is a less controversial guild, but to some, still a little controversial. But both of these two guys, who were at the time that they were in these guilds, were, or around these guilds, spending time with their players, were the lead developers of the server. They were the top guys. There was a lot of blowback from the community and a lot of pressure and complaints that these guys are being favorites to these controversial guilds, and that these guilds were getting away with a lot of things that they really shouldn't have because of the involvement of these lead developers. And whether or not these complaints were true, they were definitely felt by a lot of people, and that pressure was there on the staff. And these two situations were handled by the staff taking a step back from these groups of players that they were playing with to ease the concerns of the community. Whether, like I said, whether or not these concerns were true or not, they were definitely felt by a lot of people. And once these developers stepped back from these communities, that tension from the community as a whole was really, I felt like, eased up on the staffers. And whether or not that was fair to them, that's not up to me to decide. But that was definitely an issue that existed in the past and was dealt with in that way. The current issue and the present time. The current Rebel Coalition on SWG Restoration has several active staff members in leadership and just that are active participants. Now, you might say, you're just a schizo. Staff is anonymous. We don't know who they are. Well, I think that's not necessarily the case. I mean, obviously, the staff is supposed to be anonymous. And I know I've gotten in trouble for talking about this before, so I won't name any names for the sake of, not getting in trouble. But I do have it on good, reliable sources from people throughout the server that were either around the server in the past or in the present. I like, again, I'm, for the safety of their accounts, I'm not going to talk about their names either, but I do have it on good, reliable sources who these people are and their roles on staff and what their both staff and in-game names are. And this is part of why I said at the beginning I might get in trouble for talking about this, but it has to be said. It really does have to be said because this is making a lot of people uncomfortable. what I'm asking for is that in the same way that Aconite and Orange were confronted about potential staff bias, again, like I said, whether it was real or not, I'm asking that the current staff leadership do something about this situation. So Aconite and Orange were a bit different because they were not active participants of the GCW, and also their in-game accounts and in-game names were very well known that this is who they were. Zedco and Buffet. Like it was very well known that this was Orange and Aconite. Like people weren't uncertain about that. So it was a bit of a different situation because they were very upfront and clear with who they were, and they were also not active participants of the GCW. They hung out in both of the servers for both of the factions. They didn't really participate in the war. They very clearly didn't have a stake in one side or the other. Sometimes they'd flag up, sometimes not. They didn't really play very much. And despite that, there was not really an issue of, in my opinion, there was not really an issue of them having factional bias. Now, where it's different with the current staffers is that not only are they active combatants for the rebel faction on their non-staff accounts, the different situation about the current staffers is not only that they are active combatants for the rebel faction, which is a very different situation than Aconite and Orange, but across multiple different occasions, they've tried to use their staff accounts to anonymously gain access to the opposite faction's Discord. And this, in my opinion, is a massive violation of privacy. They play on the rebels on the rebel side with their non-staff accounts, and they fight, and they're actively involved in the Galactic Civil War, and they very clearly have a stake in one side over the other, while also multiple times have tried to use their staff accounts to gain access to the Imperial Discord. Some people on the imp side know who these people are, some don't. But the fact that this has happened and that these staffers are trying to gain access to the opposite faction's Discord with their staff accounts, playing innocent as, oh, I'm just a staff, it's just a staff guy, I'm just here to hang out and stuff. It's a bit disrespectful and it's a bit disingenuous in my opinion. There was already this issue of faction bias, but the icing on the cake on top of that is the fact that a lot of these staffers are trying to, maybe not a lot, but some of them are trying to use their staff accounts to gain access to the Imperial Discord. And I think that's a bridge too far. I already thought that staff involvement in GCW was a bit too far, but the fact that they're using their staff accounts to try and gain access to the opposite faction's Discord is that's unacceptable behavior in my opinion. It really sets a bad precedent for the integrity of GCW on this server that is growing. And then also it makes Imperial leadership feel very uncomfortable because they don't, they can't say, I can't let you in because you're a rebel player that actively PvPs with the rebellion, because then they'll get in trouble for doxing staff accounts. But then they also don't want to let these people in because, well, I don't want to let someone who's actively fighting against us into our Discord because of, whatever reasons. So you can see why this situation is a bit different and why it's such of high importance, in my opinion, to talk about this. And these staffers, if they gain access to the Imperial Discord, they could use it for spying, relaying information regarding GCW, things like that. And also it's a private server. They would be violating the privacy of the server and the people that are running it if they were trying to use their staff accounts to take advantage of getting into the server. And I just think that's not. I don't think that's acceptable. I don't think that's okay behavior. I think that's a really disingenuous way to be, behaving as a staff member. And I'm asking that this be addressed. Now, I understand how rebels will react to this information. I think that communicating this in a way like this in this video format is better than conveying the severity of this issue through, texts and schizo essays in the PvP chat that's just going to get drowned out by memes and whatnot. But what I'm really asking is for Restoration staff leadership to address this issue internally. I really don't want to blow this up to a crazy thing, but I have to, like I said, I have to address this, and this is just the best way I can do that. I understand that even though I strongly believe in not having anonymous staffers, that, it's not a realistic solution to remove that. I understand that. All I'm asking for is that the staffers who actively participate in the GCW be held accountable by the lead staff in maintaining the integrity of GCW and removing themselves from rebel leadership. And I know that not all of them are in rebel leadership, but some of them are. Some of them are not, and the ones that are not are very close to the ones that are. And, even the staffers that are active combatants and not in leadership, like just all of them, be instructed to stop trying to infiltrate the Imperial Discord using their staff accounts or any other form of loopholes that they can try to get around with their staff accounts. I just think that is the bare minimum of what I'm asking. you know, at the very least, if you're not going to ask them to step down from leadership or take a backseat, more passive role if they're going to play in the GCW, at the very least, please ask them not to use their staff accounts to go into the other factions Discord and look around, because it's very obvious that's what they're trying to do, and it's really making people uncomfortable. Now, I understand that this video might get me in trouble, and I'm willing to accept that, but this is an issue that I'm hearing about from people all over the server and how uncomfortable it makes them. But people don't want to talk about it because they don't want to get in trouble, because they've seen what talking about staff members and who's on staff, they've seen what sort of repercussions that can have, and they don't want to talk about it. But I'm gonna talk about it, and I might, like the title of this video says, I might get in trouble for this, but it's got to be said. I believe it sets a bad tone for the nature of GCW, especially for all the new people on the server, with all the growth we've seen, to have stuff like this be, unaddressed. And there are many people on the server, I understand, that consider me to be a toxic individual who has radical beliefs or wants to promote chaos and just stir drama. But I do genuinely love playing on the server. I find it really fun. I do play on obviously lots of different SWG servers, but I really enjoy this one. This is my first one, and I have a special place in my heart for the server. So I genuinely want to maintain the integrity of the community of this server and make sure that a lot of the bad staff corruption that gets talked about, not just on this server, but outside of the server about the server, be addressed by the leadership. So I appreciate your time watching this video, and thank you, and may the force be with you.